It's been a few months of learning French. You have been digging through a grammar book and vocabulary books like Edito, going through every chapter in great detail. Months pass working hard like that, in the hope that one day you would have learned enough grammar and enough vocabulary to be able to speak the language. That day is likely to come 6 months down the line. Finally, after months, you enter your first speaking session with a tutor. Bonjour, comment ça va? Très bien. This is my first French lesson. Why don't we start with some introductions first? You go and introduce yourself in French, and then I can go. Sure. Je m'appelle Anubhav. J'ai 27 ans. Je travaille dans un. What is the word for bank in French? I have seen it somewhere. You're hardly able to form sentences on the spot with all the grammar you have learned. The worst thing is that the tutor does not understand most of what you're saying. Your stress goes through the roof, and the tutor in the end tells you, I think you're still at an even level when it comes to speaking and listening to the language. Months of learning grammar and rote learning vocabulary lead to nothing in the end. To find out what went wrong, I spent sleepless nights researching the internet and trying to find out how to actually learn a language. My early reading made me aware that I was making a lot of mistakes, approaching grammar and vocab from a completely different angle. But it was this one thing I found which completely changed my life. In this video, I want to explain how I went from being a noob to getting a B2 plus in my first attempt at the TEF Canada exam. My entire framework can be broken down into 3 stages. Stage 2 is what I discovered, which completely changed my life. And stage 3 is the most important part of this framework. So make sure you take away from both parts of the video. Stage 1 is when you're a complete beginner to the language. You don't know a word in French and you're understanding basic phrases like bonjour, comment ça va, je m'appelle, etc. etc. This is also what we can call the noob stage in language learning. In this stage, it is essential for you to learn basic grammar and basic vocabulary because without that, it would be very difficult to make sense of anything. The most important thing at this stage is to start wrapping your head around the concept of gender in French because it does not exist in English. Any beginner's book like Edito A1 or Saison 1 is devoted to stuff like this. While a lot of people recommend books, I really like the Memrise app. The app is designed to help words stick, and there are native speakers who speak the language in their original accent, which makes it much more fun and effective to start with. The phrases are carefully selected for a beginner, and there is a gamified approach to language learning, which makes it much more effective for long-term memory than any book can ever make. Unfortunately, as Memrise has become more popular over the years, they have adopted a more monetized approach towards their business. Is it worth paying for? That's a call that you have to take on your own. Weigh the pros and cons and then the cost involved. In case you're only looking for free options, I still got you covered. My number one recommendation for free resources would be Coffee Break French Season 1. It is easily available on Spotify or Google Podcasts or wherever you stream your podcasts. And it is absolutely enjoyable for a beginner. They cover step by step all the important words, important phrases, and the entire approach is very engaging. So you will enjoy doing the lessons in Coffee Break French. But it doesn't really matter what resource you are using. There are literally thousands of resources available on the internet. Just grab anything that you feel like, anything that grabs your attention and you find interesting, and get the basic stuff done as early as possible. The important thing to keep in mind is that you should not be spending more than 1.5 to 2 weeks in this stage of preparation, because if you're spending more time just learning the basics, then you're essentially wasting your time. Once you're through with the basics, you would move from stage 1 to stage 2. This is where I will tell you the most important secret I've learned about learning French. Now, the way most people think is that the way you move from stage 1 to stage 2 was through learning grammar. So you need to keep learning more and more grammar to progress, right? Wrong. This is dead wrong. This is also a trap that I fell into. I thought that I need to learn more and more grammar to actually make more sense of the language and to be able to speak it. I kept thinking that the more grammar I know and the more vocabulary I know, the more I will be able to combine the two and make sentences however I want to make them. But it didn't turn out to be so well. After reading multiple books on language learning, I found that the way around this is to acquire complete phrases. Whenever you're reading a book or watching a television show or listening to a podcast and you come across an interesting phrase, you need to acquire the phrase completely as it is and not go after individual words. Now I know what you must be thinking. I'm just a beginner and I need to learn more grammar, I need to learn more vocabulary, and then I will be able to arrive at a point where I can acquire phrases, right? But let me prove it to you that even as a complete beginner, we are always acquiring phrases and not individual vocabulary words. Consider this phrase, como ça va? Do we acquire como individually and then understand sa and then see that ale is conjugated to va in como ça va and then combine everything together to say como ça va? Or is it simply
Comment ça va?
thank you and acquire this phrase completely as a whole without understanding the grammar and the vocabulary behind it? This is the approach that you need to adopt to acquire the rest of the language as well. But then the key question is, how do you navigate this endless sea of content in French? Like every day there's a book that gets released, every day there's a new app that is being launched. Like, how do you know that this is the thing that would work for you? Like, it is so easy to be drowned in this entire sea of French, right? Now, this is where there are two things that beginner and intermediate learners need to understand. Number one, you need to limit the quantity of content you're working with. And number two, you need to keep repeating the same content over and over and over again. Let me explain how I use this approach in my personal French learning journey. I really love this series called Call My Agent from Netflix. It is so amazing. I love the characters, I love the storyline, I love the entire world in which it is created. The way I used this strategy was that I limited the number of episodes that I was watching on a daily basis just to like 2 to 3 episodes. Not the entire season, not the entire series at all. Just the 2 to 3 episodes which I really liked. And I kept rewatching and rewatching and rewatching the same episode over and over and over again. I could do this because I was not getting bored watching it. I loved the series and it really helped me understand French at a much deeper level. Because every time I rewatched the same episode, I was acquiring a new phrase, a new vocabulary word which I did not notice the previous time around. It was like I was learning French in layers. With every rewatch of the episode, I was adding another layer to my French learning, acquiring more phrases to work with, acquiring more vocabulary, and solidifying the vocabulary and phrases which I had acquired from the previous rewatches. Now, an important thing to keep in mind here is that you don't have to press pause at every second and acquire each and every phrase and each and every vocabulary word that you come across. You will drive yourself nuts doing that. This is a question I get a lot in my one-to-one coaching sessions, and a lot of times people ask me, how do you keep acquiring the phrases and everything that is being talked about? And the answer to that is that I do not acquire everything that is being talked about. It's like standing under a shower. When you're standing under a shower, do you try to catch each and every water droplet, or do you let it flow all over you naturally? It's just like that. Whenever you're listening to a podcast or watching a Netflix episode or doing anything with French, it's like somebody has turned on the language learning shower on you. And then you let the words, which are like individual droplets, flow all over you naturally. You don't try and catch each and every word and each and every phrase. Only when something really catches your attention, you find that this is an amazing way of saying something, or you feel that a phrase is going to be very useful for you in a specific situation that you will find yourself in, then you hit pause. You try to understand the context in which the phrase is used. Is it a formal conversation? Is it an informal conversation? Is it a conversation between colleagues? Is it a conversation between friends, between parents and children? Like, what is the overall context in which that phrase was used? This will help you in understanding if you can use that phrase in your situation. And then you quickly acquire the phrase, you write it down, you put it in your memory, and then quickly move on from that. The focus is the content, is the story, is the information that you're receiving from whatever you're watching or listening to. Language learning will keep happening on its own in the background. Once you've figured out your content game, it's time to move on to stage 3. Stage 3 is where all the magic happens. But before moving on to stage 3, if you found any value in this video, then please consider subscribing to this channel and giving this video a thumbs up. It is free for you, but it would mean the world to me. Moving from stage 1 to stage 2 was like walking a straight line. But moving from stage 2 to stage 3 is more like climbing a mountain. A common mistake people make here is that they feel that the more French they learn, the better they will become at speaking it. It's like you're trying to learn your ability to speak in a language by reading books and manuals about it. But learning French is more like learning how to play the guitar. Hey, stop, man. Hey, stop. Hey, dude, stop.
What?
Uh, you don't have to show off right now. Learning to speak French is more like learning to play guitar. You actually have to practice speaking just like practicing guitar, in the sense that you cannot read manuals about how to play guitar to become better at it. You actually have to take it in your hands. You have to practice different chords. You have to make those mistakes, and then eventually you'll get better at it. I know. You want to know more grammar, you want to acquire more phrases, you want to know more words before you feel ready to be able to speak the language, right? But let me tell you, you're never going to feel ready to speak French. To share my personal story, it was so embarrassing, so painful, so intimidating to be able to sit in front of a language learning, expert or a teacher, and then test everything that you have been doing in all this time. And every time I fumbled, or I did not know a word, or I did not remember a vocabulary word, I felt that the entire world is coming to a crash, that everything that I'm doing is going to a waste, and I will never be able to learn this language. But I stuck to the process, and slowly the results started coming in. It's like exercising in the gym. In order to grow your muscle, you have to put yourself under a lot of stress, under a heavy weight, and that stress is what causes that muscle to grow. Same thing goes for learning how to speak in French. You have to put yourself in those stressful situations with real native speakers who would force you to come up with a sentence or a phrase in response to a situation right in that instant. Compare this to a situation where a grammar teacher gives you ample time to come up with all the vocabulary that you know, all the grammar that you know, and then lets you combine that in like 10 minutes. There is not enough stress in that situation for your French speaking muscle to grow. You are putting in the work of learning grammar, you are working hard to acquire vocabulary. It's just that you're not creating enough of an environment for your brain to build that French speaking muscle. A thing to keep in mind here is that these three stages are not like a straight line. In fact, think of it more like a circle. Feel free to go back to stage 1 if you feel that your grammar is lacking. Feel free to go back to stage 2 if you feel that you need more phrases to work with. And then, of course, stage 3 is where all the magic happens, when you put together that grammar and the phrases that you have been acquiring, and you put yourself under those stressful situations with a live native teacher, and then keep going through all these stages as and when you're required. It is not about mastering one stage and then moving to the next. In fact, there is no mastering of this language in this entire journey. Just go back two stages as you think that they are needed, and keep progressing, keep building that muscle, and you will start seeing progress. At the end of the day, practice is the name of the game. The more you practice, the better you become, and that leads you into a positive loop. And that positive loop is going to lead to success on the day of the exam. Another area where practice is needed is writing. So, if you want pro tips on how to get a C1 in your writing exam, then check out this video here I made around Fare Thee Well. I'll see you in the next one.